Welcome to another episode of the Be Wise Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Y. Wright. Please, before we get started, please like and subscribe this video. I need more likes and subscribes. YouTube has changed the algorithm and they need more commenting, more liking, more subscribing, and that way they push your video out there. And I'm a new content creator here on YouTube, so I'm just trying to get the numbers up. I'd really appreciate that. So before I get started, one thing I want to say is I rarely do I talk about Candace Owens on my show because Candace Owens has 6 million viewers. Each one of her videos sometimes get 1 million to 2 million views. And it really makes no sense for me to cover what she's already talked about when you can just go see it yourself. Very, very popular show. The reason I'm doing this one is because this was an open letter to Erika Kirk, and she just goes nuclear. You know, she's acting like she's uncovered the Zapruder film. There's no easing in, no benefit of the doubt, just straight to, I know what really happened and everyone else is lying. So I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to react to that. I wanted to get your comments on it, see what you thought. And, let's just get going, and we're going to talk about it as I show some clips, and we'll go from there. We'll talk about it. Here we go.
I want there to be no hesitation in understanding of what happened to my husband that day. I want there to always be full transparency, because what I don't want to have happen is for there not to be, and then I am relying then on social media and other news outlets to explain the narrative rather than saying, hey, this is what happened. This is what here's all of the, it's just as hard, all of the facts on the table for you guys to see. And you guys can see on full display what happened to my husband. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts or confusion as to who did it and why.
I don't believe her at all. That wasn't convincing. I don't know what was hard about getting that sentence out. That seems remarkably rehearsed. It almost just seems like she forgot a line.
She said, I'm not buying it. She's not buying it. So Candace's thesis is this. It's very simple but aggressive. Erika doesn't need the courts for transparency. Charlie Kirk ran to TPUSA. Now Erika Kirk has the keys. So when Candace hears the legal process will reveal everything, she treats it like it's a stall tactic. It's like political hold music. And Candace she's just not buying it. She's like, yeah, you look fake, you look rehearsed, and whatever you have to say from here on out, it's just not going to go well, So again, make sure you like and subscribe on this channel because I really want to get this up. Anyway, she's just like saying, Erika, I have a lot of evidence. There's a lot of information that I'm holding, and you can get your lawyers. I got my lawyers. If you want to come at me, come at me. And that's just how it's going to go down.
None of that was true. The truth, and I think that you very well know what the truth is, because you were around for it, is that Charlie and I had a disagreement, which fractured my trust in him. He did something that he had never done before. He lied to my face about money. Now, in retrospect, I believe that the manner in which I discovered the lie might have been by design, but there's no need for us to delve into conspiracy when the facts are plenty enough. Charlie had taken a meeting down in Florida with Ike Perlmutter at Mar-a-Lago. It was a fundraising meeting. For whatever reason, he did not want me to know about this meeting, and that was strange. It was meant to be kept a secret. It was strange because we had always collaborated on and taken those sorts of meetings together. Anyway, I found out about it, and I decided to ask him casually as we were riding up an elevator at the Trump Hotel in DC. I said to him, have you heard from Ike recently? And he looked me right in the face, just as he was getting off on his floor. And he said, no, I haven't. I haven't heard from him in like 2 weeks. And I then said back to him, really, Charlie, because you had lunch with him yesterday at Mar-a-Lago. And I saw his stomach drop.
Yeah, so that's where their relationship was kind of fractured, but they still continued to tour. They still continued to be friends, but it was just kind of like, you ever have a friend or a best friend or a family member betray you? You kind of let it slide, you accept their apologies, but it will always be there. It will always be there. And Candace was like, So She didn't like the people he was starting to, communicate with, some of the new people that started to be around TPUSA, the money that was being talked about. It was almost like the mission was changing. And she didn't like it, So we're going to meet this French billionaire. His name's Pierre, mysterious French Catholic billionaire who allegedly waved around billion-dollar deals. And this is where the story kind of leaves Earth. We're asked to believe that the TPUSA leadership either forgot to mention a billionaire or lied about him entirely. Either way, not great, but also this is not proof of this global hit job. But, let's continue and find out, where this is going, because it's so much to unpack. And we'll talk about this as we go forward.
I've also come to another realization that I missed at that time. Maybe the newest and the biggest influence in his ear. Who was that, obviously? It was you. You were the newest and biggest influence in Charlie's life. You kind of all arrived at the same time. And you too, Erika, you lied to my face as we sat down in that hotel and we spoke for 4 hours. But I want to be clear, it was different. You see, with Charlie, I could forgive him. We were always like brother and sister who went on tours thereafter. But you didn't do it, when you lied, you didn't do it out of naivety. You didn't do it because you were young and being pulled into the wrong direction by bad faith actors. Andrew Colvett was never going rogue. You knew that. Every single evil thing that was done to me was done with your blessing. And I consider the onslaught of attacks that I had to endure, they were evil.
Yeah, so what she's talking about is that she had this right after the memorial. Candace had been talking a lot about what was going on with TPUSA. She tried to keep Erika Kirk's name out of her mouth, out of respect. She was supposed to be a grieving widow. Candace was just trying to be respectful, but she was not going to stop investigating this. And she said, at first, the only people that can stop me from investigating this is my husband and Erika Kirk. But then she thought about the fact that Erika Kirk is the CEO. She put herself in the crosshairs. So if I'm going to question TPUSA, I of course have to question the CEO and the leadership of TPUSA. So she was kind of stuck in a pickle. How do I investigate this without involving Erika Kirk? And if I involve Erika Kirk, the public is going to come down on me. The media is going to come down on me because they think that I am picking on or bullying this grieving widow. So it was kind of tough. It was kind of tough. And I kind of understand where she went. And so they had this 4-hour meeting face to face because Candace said, if you want to talk about this with me, I'll be happy to meet you anytime, any place. And people were like, when Erika Kirk was on the Barry Weiss interview on CBS, and she said, we're willing to meet her. She was sent an invite from TPUSA, this time, this place. And first, Candace says, I can't make it. And everyone was like, I thought you said anytime, any place. So she looked like she was avoiding the confrontation. So finally, she decided to meet with Erika Kirk and the TPUSA minions. And they sat for 4 hours and talked. Candace even canceled her show that day, came on late night and says, hey guys, I'm okay, I'm back. And I have a lot to cover from our meeting. She was told at that time something that Andrew Colvett had said, and they were told, oh, he spoke out of turn, he was going rogue. And that just didn't sit well with Candace. So that's what she meant when she said, Andrew Colvett didn't go rogue. You're lying. So that's how that whole thing went down. But why did Erika lie? I don't know.
Because you knew I was telling the truth, and you authorized people with an incredible amount of money to attack one of the few people in politics who was actually grieving your husband. You knew we had a deep friendship. You knew I was telling the truth about the Catholic thing, about everything. You allowed these people to lie and to say that Charlie and I hadn't spoken since 2019. I mean, it's crazy how much of a lie that was. You authorized it, and I now know that. The question is why?
Yeah, so that's what was going on in the media. Everyone was saying that Candace was crazy. Candace was lying. People were saying, I saw TikToks that were saying things like, Candace is lying. She and Charlie hadn't been friends for years. The last time they spoke was 2019. And then Candace had to prove it that, no, that's not true. I was actually at a TPUSA event after that, I think in 2021. I was on stage. But the biggest thing she said is, Erika knew all this. She was in the room when it happened. But yet she continued to not only lie, but continued to let the media and everybody else call me a liar. And that was really hurtful for Candace. She was like, I can't believe that you would actually support this narrative. And she didn't like it one bit. She didn't like it. So she went on and talked about that the reason you knew that I wasn't lying because you have Charlie's phone. And I was showing text messages between Charlie and I. I was showing text messages that would reveal that I'm telling the truth. And you had those text messages. But yet you went on Barry Weiss and you said, I want it to stop. I want it to stop. And that just, it wasn't going to fly with Candace. One thing about Candace is that when she hits the nuclear button, she goes all in.
It was so cruel. It was so mean, right? Why impart that on someone who within a sea of snakes, actually cared about Charlie and didn't want anything out of the organization? Maybe it's because I was like a loose end, one person that wasn't controlled by an organization. I'd just kind of proven that I'd rather lose everything to say something that I don't believe, least of all for money. I mean, maybe it's also because you have his phone. And when I revealed to the public that he had predicted his own death in remarkable detail, maybe you went back and you read the rest of those messages, the ones that I haven't yet revealed to the public, because in retrospect, those messages they're pretty terrifying because they're precise and it feels prophetic.
Candace was a loose end. TPUSA could control the narrative about anything else, but they couldn't control Candace because Candace, she's not connected to anything. She's not owned by the Daily Wire anymore. Ben Shapiro can't tell her how to move, what to say. She's not owned by Disney, ABC, CBS, and NBC. She's her own deal. So you can't stop her. So they're like, what do we do about Candace? All they could say is that she lies. All they could do is spend millions of dollars on PR machines saying, how can we discredit Candace? So we'll just keep putting it out there. We'll pay podcasters. We'll pay social media content creators. We'll pay all these people to say that she's a liar. And it worked to a degree, but Candace didn't stop. She didn't stop. So then, as I said, we're introduced to this Catholic billionaire, Pierre, and things just aren't adding up. It's not adding up at all.
I flagged that. I also thought what was interesting is that you said the next morning when he snuck in, he grabbed his wedding band. Again, minor detail, but I asked myself, why was his wedding band off? But enough with speculation. Here are the facts. I now have verifiable proof in writing that Justin Strife and you lied to me. You know exactly who Pierre is. Why did Justin Strife say that he had never heard of Pierre? It's crazy. Justin, why would you do that? Justin, you know him. You've met with him. You've personally met with Pierre. Erika, you've met with him in the wake of Charlie's death. I have, again, verifiable proof. So you can call your lawyers. You can spend another $1 billion on PR if you want to. Tell your lawyer to call my lawyer. I mean, you guys certainly have the money to do all of these things. It's not going to wipe away the truth.
Yep. So Pierre, who's this Catholic billionaire guy, Pierre? And why is he interested in Turning Point USA. What does TPUSA do? They go from college campus to college campus. Charlie Kirk does. Talk to young people about conservatism, about Christianity. Opens the mic. They answer questions. Why do they need billions of dollars? They don't. Because once you put that much money into an organization, now you're inviting in corruption. You're inviting in handlers. You're inviting in people that tell you what the organization can and cannot do. And that's concerning. Billions of dollars. It's unnecessary. And it makes no sense. Why are they involved?
I'm guessing, by the way, regarding this, Pierre, that this might be the reason that the White House never got back to me regarding the French Foreign Legion being involved with Charlie's assassination. Because, I don't know, there could be a French angle here. Could this be a motive? Could billions of dollars be a motive? I mean, I'll just ask them immediate questions. My question would be, why would a devout Catholic Frenchman be looking to give billions of dollars to an evangelical organization? Is that not weird? Just objectively weird? Gosh, that's a pretty big investment. Just really care about free market capitalism? What's France got to do with college campuses in America, full stop? The answer, Erika, is nothing.
Yeah. So for me, that means that, well, let me give you some background. As she was doing her investigation, there was a lot of things going on. There were Egyptian airplanes landing in Delaware. There was like a meeting in the Hamptons. Bibi Netanyahu was calling. The French Foreign Legion got involved somehow. And Candace was like, what's all this? Maybe the White House knows. So she contacted a representative at the White House and was like, she wanted to know what was going on. There was no one to talk to. So she said, well, it's Candace Owens. I got some questions I would like to be answered. Here's the questions. Get back to me. She didn't care if it was Caroline Leavitt or Donald Trump himself. Because Donald Trump did call her one day to say, hey, lay off Brigitte Macron, lay off France right now. And that didn't go well either. So the White House never responded. They never responded. And she wants to know what was going on. So, but in a nutshell, Charlie was infiltrated. By who? We don't know. France, Israel, maybe even Egypt. They're involved. Bibi Netanyahu gets his name checked. And Erika may have even lied about her location on the day of the assassination. But at this point, the conspiracy board, they need to meet and talk about this, because what are we going to do about Candace Owens? What are we going to do about Candace Owens?
And it was so crazy. Oh my God. A little joke about the Egyptian planes. What? Nothing to see here. This is my theory. There's a lot to see here because you were lying to cover Bibi Netanyahu's tracks. That's very strange. You were there when Bibi Netanyahu called. Andrew told me that Bibi offered to take Turning Point USA to the next level and that Charlie turned him down.
Yeah. So, as I said, there was this big party, this big meeting in the Hamptons, all the TPUSA brass. Charlie Kirk, Erika Kirk was there, all these people. And a lot went down. Who said what? Understanding there was a call from Bibi to Charlie, offering him billions of dollars, saying that I can help you take TPUSA to the next level. What's the next level? No one understands what the next level is. Again, that just sounds corrupt to me. And it sounds corrupt to Candace. And she's just, I got to get to the bottom of it. But while I'm trying to get to the bottom of it, everyone's laughing at me and saying that I'm crazy and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. At the end of the day, it was a lot more being said about Candace being crazy. And she said she just thinks it's just one big psyop against her.
Full-blown psyop, psychological operation. Truly everything that you guys did, not only was it cruel, but I think the real motivation was you just thought you could psychologically break me. Because that's what this whole thing has been. It's been one big psyop, very well funded because there's a lot of money on the line. If nothing happened in the Hamptons that was out of the usual, why the panic?
See? And she's not letting this go. She's not letting this go at all. You know, she thinks she's the main character. She claims, and like, again, because she's a loose end. So there is a lot she said that someone from TPUSA watches her show every night because she's the main source. And she just feels there's this psychological operation just to traumatize and silence her because she's the one loose end, as she said. And that's where skepticism turns into like popcorn eating territory, you know? And, you know, it's just all weird to me as well. When you get secrecy, mass firings, like loyalty purges, red flags, I have to say there's no argument there. No argument at all.
How? Why? I think France and Israel are involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. And I'm going to put that out there with full confidence. I also now have very strong evidence which suggests that you lied about your whereabouts on the morning of September 10th. Little details have been edited. You said that you were accompanying your mother as she was receiving a treatment. Like I said, I now have something which strongly disputes that narrative.
So Erika Kirk is just not being truthful. And why would you call Candace to a meeting? Let's clear the air. Let's get the facts out there. If you're going to talk about this, make sure you have facts. And you spend 4 hours lying to her? To me, that's just crazy. That's just crazy. I don't know. But again, you have to watch the shows to get it all, because there's still people on TikToks and other platforms going, oh, Candace is talking a bunch of nonsense. When you have all these unanswered questions, they become evidence of like this international intelligence plot. Credibility starts to leak. You're running out of credibility. And how did this all start? Like, what's really going on with Candace Owens and Turning Point USA? So after Charlie Kirk's death, right, his wife Erika steps in. Suddenly she's running one of the biggest conservative organizations in the country. And Candace, she's just not buying how clean and, tidy this whole transition was. Candace says the official story around Charlie's death just doesn't add up. Too many unanswered questions. Too much trust us and move on. That's what they want. Trust us and move on. She's basically saying, nah, we're not doing that. So her investigation like zeroes in on Erika and Turning Point USA leadership. Unfortunately, the grieving widow had to be involved because she put herself in the leadership. Candace wants to know, why are things moving so fast? Why couldn't you leave the spot open and put our interim CEO in until all these questions are cleared up, until the court case on the assassinator? Why were there certain conversations are happening behind closed doors? And why does the organization seem more focused on controlling the narrative, hiding things, than being transparent? It gets spicy. There's leaks, audio drops, public call-outs. And Candace frames it as a search for truth. But TPUSA, they frame it as a reckless conspiracy nonsense. And people on social media calls it nonsense and calls Candace nonsense. And then you got conservatives beefing with conservatives. All these conservative podcasters, some are with Candace, some are against Candace. Tucker Carlson's involved. And let's be honest, it just all gets very weird. Like I said, They eventually sit down privately. Everyone claims it was a productive meeting. But the damage is already done. Trust is shaken. Lines are drawn. And Candace is still saying, if there's nothing to hide, then stop acting like there is. Bottom line is, Candace says, I'm pulling on some threads because the story doesn't smell right. TPUSA says she's lighting matches in a gas station. I just say, let's get our popcorn ready. But then there's the firings. So they had this big memorial for Charlie Kirk, fireworks, pyrotechnics, sparkly outfits, the whole nine. Employees working 15, 20-hour days. Now you got to imagine, if Candace doesn't think something smells right, then there's got to be people within the organization that's watching Candace every night. They're saying, yeah, something doesn't smell right. So they're talking. So this one incident happens where suddenly employees start to get fired. Out of the blue. They're calling people in, they're firing people. They had this live Zoom call, and Erika Kirk is talking to the employees and talking about how great they did. They're selling hats and merchandise. The memorial was a success, and she's so proud of the people and telling them they need time to grieve and take some, time off and grieve if you need to. Use your PTO rather, I'm sorry. But you all have done a great job, and I'm here for you. It was just a weird Zoom call. She's laughing and giggling and talking about the emojis. Oh, that's so cute, this, that, and the other. And these firings, that's the part that actually matters to me, because you got former employees saying they were asked for questioning the narrative of the assassination. And this one, she describes this bizarre Uber ride incident. It feels less than an HR policy. But they want to know, are you loyal enough to be with TPUSA? Because if you are out there questioning our narrative and our mission and our operation, then you shouldn't be here. So you're going to hear this one employee talk about her firing, and it was chilling on how they could do this.
Had me down and told me that there were 2 instances they wanted to talk to me about, one of which is pretty irrelevant to this timeline, so I'm just going to talk about the one, which was an Uber ride. What was told to me was that a Turning Point executive got into an Uber one day, and they randomly just kind of started talking about Turning Point. And the executive asked the driver, what do you think about Turning Point? And the driver proceeded to tell the Turning Point executive, well, it's just really sad. I've heard the organization's really going downhill. There's not really direction, and nobody likes Erika. And the Turning Point executive proceeded to ask this Uber driver, well, who told you that? And the Uber driver told the Turning Point executive that his daughter was good friends with a girl that worked at Turning Point way back when in high school. They had spoken about Turning Point since Charlie's assassination, and that, this was told to him by his daughter. And the Turning Point executive, of course, asked, well, what's the employee's name? And the Uber driver allegedly said, Aubrey. Aubrey who? Aubrey Leitch. And the story was presented to me as one of the reasons for my termination. Turning Point has not insinuated this. They never told me anything like this. However, I just have a gut feeling that I was terminated from Turning Point because I am questioning the narrative of what happened to my role model and CEO, Charlie Kirk, on the day of his assassination. It is from my own experience that you can't question the narrative and work at Turning Point. That is how I feel. That is how other people I've talked to feel. It goes against everything that Charlie ever stood for. I'm going to take action. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to talk to other people. And I refuse to apologize for having my own freedom of thought, which is something that Charlie ingrained in me and so many other young people.
First and foremost, just want to say the idea of being brought into an office and questioned by your boss about something an Uber driver said what is this, Gossip Girl? I mean, what CW show are we watching here?
So this is where they messed up. That girl that they fired, Arby Letch, she's a public relations expert. Her background, her vocation, her education is in PR. That's what she did for Turning Point, to make sure that they always are glossy to the public. That's the person you fire? That's the person that you fire abruptly, incorrectly? Well, ironically, there's a GoFundMe right now to assist all those employees that were abruptly fired. And you can give, it's called the Purge Fallout Fund. Ironically, Candace Owens' picture is the icon. That's the thumbnail for the GoFundMe. They've raised a lot of money so far. They raised like $36,000 on the first day. But what happens when you have a GoFundMe? It goes public. And people are like, what the hell's going on? What the hell is going on? That's never good. You know? You start to get press. It's going to be in the news. What is the Purge Fallout Fund? GoFundMe raises $36,000. That was on day one. They're trying to get $250,000 to raise money for the fired employees. That's never good. That's never good. And ironically, this is the craziest part. Remember the show Scandal with Kerry Washington, where her job is to, when things are going bad for a company or a politician or an organization, she got her crew, she cleans up the PR nightmare, whether it's sexual assault, embezzlement, dirt on the president. That's her job. And this Aubrey Letch person, I'm not going to say where she's working now because I don't know her and I don't want to put her personal information out there, even though you can look her up on LinkedIn, figure it out yourself. But I wanted to see, hey, did she land on her feet? And she landed on her feet. And guess what she's doing? She's working for a company who does what Scandal did, that exact thing. Companies facing major challenges, from legislative and regulatory policy battles to communication crisis, and those needing issues, management, branding, and social and digital media expertise, turn to this company for help. So, sounds like they fired the wrong one. Sounds like they fired the wrong one. It's all over X, Instagram, Facebook. They have a goal of $244,000. Oh no, they're only $244,000 away from their goal. I think they'll get it. Because Candace even said on her show, I'm going to donate, you donate. If you got 1 million viewers and half of them like your show and agree with you, they could get $500,000. So that's all I got. I just wanted to highlight this because that was one of the biggest takedowns I've ever seen live. And I was just like, wow, she's not holding back. She's like, come at me, bro. Come at me. All right. Once again, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, please. And I hope you watch my show. I really appreciate you guys. You guys take care. You guys have a good one.